Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. You've got a responsibility to go back to Lodabar. Your work's not done just because you made it to the palace. Oh, bless the name of the Lord. But you've got a responsibility to help somebody else make it across. Thank you, Jesus. Don't pull up the ladder because you climbed to the top. Don't blow up the bridge because you made your way across. Thank you, Jesus. But reach your hand back down the ladder and pull somebody else up out of Lodabar. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. It's all right if you got it now. Just hold it for me. I'll be there to get it after a while. Oh, bless the name of the Lord. Thank you, Jesus. You've got to make up in your mind that what God has for me, it is for me. I might not have it right now. May not get it next week. You might try to stop me from getting it. But if God said it's mine, I want you to know after a while, I'm going to get what belongs to me. Sometimes God got to strip what you got so you don't depend on yourself. He got to take away from you so you understand how to depend on El Shaddai. Come on in here. Thank you, Jesus. Our young people are dying.
90.7 WTCC.
Suicide.
Good morning.
Homicide.
Welcome to the Spoken
They'll kill you at
Word.
the drop of a dime.
I'm your host, Bishop Talbert Swan the second.
Our jails.
And as usual, we'll be telling it like it is through cultural idioms and nuances that shape the
Still
order,
runs rampant.
ethos, and chaos of the African-American experience. Words have their own vitality. They shape their own consciousness, create their own context for interpreting social and spiritual reality. The spoken word contains the power to reshape the landscape of society. It is 4 minutes past the hour of 9 a.m. And it's good to be with you on another edition of the Spoken Word. Hope you all had a wonderful weekend. Don't know what you did in terms of the 4th of July. I do what I normally do. I kind of try to educate people on the history of the 4th of July. And I always quote the late great ancestor, Frederick Douglass. What to the slave is the 4th of July? 4th of July means something completely different for black people than it does for white folks in America. So we've got a different nuance in terms of the celebration. I've got a special program today. It's going to be a very special announcement that's going to be made a little later on in the broadcast. I've got a couple of guests that will be coming on in a little bit, and we're going to be dealing with the issue of police accountability in our city. I'll kind of set it up before my guests get on the broadcast. Tell a friend, tell somebody that the bishop is on the air right now. What I need you to do for me, I need for you to like, I need for you to share, I need for you to subscribe, I need you to do all of that stuff. Tell a friend, start a watch party, whatever the case may be, so we can have a nice little family conversation, okay? Now, I need you to put this on your calendar. Remember, this Wednesday at 9 p.m. will be my third edition of the Bishop's Barbecue. No raisins in the potato salad, just truth served hot off the grill. Listen, this is a special episode of the Bishop's Barbecue. I've got an all-female cast. The sisters are going to bring it, okay? You hear me? I said the sisters are going to bring it. I've got Karen Hunter, Pulitzer Prize winning journalist, syndicated talk show host on Sirius XM, The Karen Hunter Show. You don't want to miss her. We've had her here in Springfield several times. Don't want to miss Karen. I've got Miss Tamika Mallory, the architect of the Women's March, the architect of Until Freedom. She's out there on the front line. She's been here at my church in Springfield. She's going to be with me on Wednesday. I've got Ida Rodriguez, comedian, activist. You've seen her. You know her. You want to be a part of this conversation. And I've got scholar, author, Dr. Keisha Blaine, brand new book out. She's writing reviews. She's doing syndicated columns. I got 4 brilliant sisters that are going to be with me on Wednesday night. Tell somebody, put a pin in there. You don't want to miss this Wednesday's edition of the Bishop's Barbecue. It's happening at 9 p.m. We'll be streaming live. So please, ma'am, please, sir, make sure you are there. All right, we're talking police accountability today. Tell a friend, tell somebody the bishop is on the air. Rep your city, rep your town. Let me know where you're coming in from. Good morning, Facebook Live. Good morning, YouTube. Good morning, Periscope and Twitter. Good morning, everybody who's listening by way of 90.7 FM WTCC in the Pioneer Valley and beyond. It's a pleasure being with you. Don't you dare touch that dial. We're going to be right back, okay? Don't go nowhere.
Think that when his nation is burning from the East Coast to the West Coast, that he would get up and try to unite people, try to bring people together, try to condemn the social injustice that brought us to this point. But no, he wants to thugify black folk. When white folk came to Michigan, armed to the teeth, carrying AR-15 rifles, dressed in combat gear. Come on, somebody, carrying nooses and waving racist Confederate flags. He called them very good people and demanded that the governor of Michigan cut a deal with them and talk to them. But when black folk came to protest the unjust murder of black people, he called us thugs. Yeah, thugification, demonization, and criminalization are all attempts at ultimately dehumanizing us. Because if we can prove that someone is less than human, then we can justify killing them.
I look in the mirror and I like what I see. A strong, beautiful black woman staring back at me. One who's seen a lot of pain and had her share of sorrow. but he never gave up hope for a brighter tomorrow. I've been lied to, cheated on, stolen from, and hidden, but it just made me stronger, and I refuse to quit. That's right. And though I've been tempted, I refuse to stoop to their level. Don't go down there. I rose above that nonsense and made a liar of the devil. All right now. The devil who said I wasn't good enough, cute enough, or worthy of love, I kicked his butt with divine power from above. Power that says I can do all things through Christ, which strengthens me, and brought me out of darkness so that I could see that I'm smart, I'm beautiful, I'm a child of the King. Abundant love for me, he came to bring. Oh yes, when I look in the mirror, I love what I see. She's looking good. That strong, beautiful black woman, that woman is me.
I can get killed on the street for no reason, shot in the park for playing with a toy, choked to death just because, murdered for being black in a white neighborhood, shot in my car while rushing home to get medicine for my daughter, killed in the stairway for trying to catch an elevator, gunned down in Walmart for holding a toy, all for no price, for no ransom, for no reward, just because I've been labeled as less than human. Oh my God, I'm black, I'm other, I'm not like them. My music is too loud, so I should get killed. My hair is too kinky, so I should get killed. My hair's too nappy, too dreaded. My pants are too saggy. My shoes aren't tied. I'm wearing a hoodie. I walk too fast. I look intimidating. I'm a threat, a menace, a societal scourge, a community casualty, a neighborhood nuisance. I can't win. I can't get a job. I can't get a raise. I can't get a promotion. I can't find no respect. I can't get the benefit of the doubt. I can't make ends meet. I can't breathe. What do I do when I can't breathe?
All right, 90.7 WTCC. Good morning. Back with you in the place, 90.7. It amazes me the cognitive dissonance that our clear brothers and sisters have when it comes to the condition of black people in America, and really the condition of America, the white supremacy that pervades this nation, the disparate treatment of non-white people. It just amazes me how they stand in, just ultimate denial about what's happening. It's amazing to me how people can view the same circumstance and come to two diametrically opposed opinions about them. And so, when some white folks see a George Floyd having his neck crushed, they come to a completely different conclusion than the rest of America, that that's an act of injustice, an act of wickedness and evil. And I'm wondering what goes on in the psyche, in the mentality of people like that, when they look at the same thing that we look at and come to a completely different conclusion. And so I was told this past week by the commissioner of police here in the city that I live in Springfield, Massachusetts, that police brutality is not a problem with the Springfield Police Department. Now, ignore the fact that 14 officers are indicted on one case of brutalizing black men. Other officers are indicted for threatening to murder Latino suspects. Ignore the fact that the city has literally paid out multi-millions of dollars in taxpayer money to settle lawsuits for police brutality cases. Ignore all of that and just say there's no problem with police brutality. It doesn't matter that you're paying millions of dollars for police brutality. It doesn't matter that the officers in my department are being prosecuted by the feds and by the state because we're in bed with the district attorney and we can pretty much fudge the investigations internally and to ensure that the district attorney doesn't file charges against them. But outside, law enforcement agencies have done their own investigations and have filed charges against my police officers. I'm going to still have the caucasity to tell you that we don't have a problem with police brutality in our city. I'm going to play this video and then I'm going to bring on our guests and we're going to chop this up and talk about it a little bit. Here was my response. It was a sermon that I preached on Sunday that was entitled One Nation Under God. And in that particular message, I briefly talked a little bit about our illustrious, I don't know if I should use the word illustrious, but anyway, a police chief, a police commissioner who said, you know what, Talbert, we don't have a problem. The problem is you're young black men in the hood. Let's listen to this and then we'll bring on our guests.
There's a danger of one being forced to change our identity to fit the perception of the dominant culture who keeps telling us that racism is a thing of the past, that oppression is a thing of the past. I had the chief of police, the commissioner of police, tell me just this week in an email that police brutality is not a problem in the city of Springfield, that the problem is your young black men killing each other. And so instead of worrying about the police department, you need to be worried about the crime up in Mason Square. Well, Miss Commissioner, just because you don't live in Springfield, and just because you don't have black skin, and just because you can lie on a police report and you can get convicted of that crime and you can still rise through the ranks to become the commissioner of police, everybody doesn't have your lily white woman experience. There is another experience that exists in our city, and I'm just trying to peel back the veil so that you can see what how dare you tell me what we don't face? How dare you tell me when every week somebody is calling my phone trying to file a complaint about police brutality, police misconduct, and you have the audacity, or will I say the unmitigated caucasity, to tell me that police brutality does not exist in our dear city?
Yeah, she told me that, y'all. She really said that. So let me get my guests on here. I've got with me this morning Counselor Tracy Whitfield. Good morning.
Good morning. I was muted. Good morning.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I got with me City Council President Justin Hurst. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. How we doing this morning?
Oh, we doing all right, man. Day at a time, trying to make it happen.
That's good to
trying
hear.
to make it happen. Let me see.
How you doing, Counselor?
And I've got a couple young activists, Ms. Stephanie Marichaux and Simbrit Paskin of Stay Woke, Stay Active, and I want to welcome them for the first time to the program. Good morning, ladies.
Good morning. Hello.
How y'all doing?
Good. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing fair to middling. That's an old folks term from the South. Y'all might not know what that means. My folks are from Mississippi, so I say some strange stuff, even though I was born and raised in New England. But let's talk a little bit about this notion that police brutality is not an issue in Springfield, and the default, what I call it is a default deflection, because every time you begin to talk about police brutality, the extrajudicial murder of Black people, the disparate treatment of Blacks by police, profiling of Black people by police, automatically white folks have this default setting that they automatically say, well, what about Chicago? What about Black on Black crime? You know, all that kind of stuff. And the commissioner was true to form this week when she said to me, the problem we have is keeping these young Black men from killing each other. The problem we got is crime in Mason Square. We need to keep these kids out of gangs, and y'all need to start some mentoring programs, and telling us stuff like she was coming up with some groundbreaking ideas. I mean, things that we've been doing for years and for decades. You know, we've run a rites of passage male mentoring program for decades. I mean, you're not telling me nothing that we don't already do, Commissioner. I mean, we've saved tons of young people, male and female, from getting involved in gangs and alcohol, tobacco, and other substances. We've put many of them on the path to go to college or vocational school and to better their lives. So telling us what we need to do with our kids is condescending, it's racist, it's patronizing. It's that white mommy, white daddy syndrome where they think that they know what's best for us and want to tell us what we need to do with our young people. Councilor Hirsch, the city has paid out millions of dollars in lawsuits for police brutality cases. How can a commissioner with that information say it's not a problem?
I think that's part of the problem. And I think until you acknowledge that you're struggling to acknowledge that it exists, we're in trouble. And you would expect the leader of our police department to, at the very least, be able to acknowledge some of the systemic issues within her police department that lend itself to the police brutality that we are indeed facing here in the city of Springfield. So the fact that she can't acknowledge it is part of the problem. The second issue is that she's not willing to listen, and especially listen when it comes to the issues that we're facing in the city of Springfield, and the idea that we are struggling here, and we're struggling, and we need her to be part of the solution and not part of the problem, which is what is occurring right now. She's being part of the problem, and so it's going to be very difficult for us to move forward with her in leadership.
Wow, Councilor Whitfield, what's your take?
Sorry, I keep muting and unmuting. My take is the exact same. You know, I recently asked the solicitor for the number on what we pay out. We paid out in police brutality, and it's millions of dollars. It's millions of dollars that we pay out in police brutality each year. And I'm a numbers person, and I think you all know that. But it's more about how they are treating our people. I always go back to Delano Walker Jr. because him and Ben Stooper are the closest to me in my life. This young man was going on his bike to get some food. He got the food from McDonald's and was going back home. His mother gave him the permission. They weren't doing anything bad. They weren't being malicious. And this officer just thought he had the authority to harass these young men for no other reason than the color of their skin. He had no other reason than the color of their skin to attack them. And it ended up in a fatality for this 15-year-old boy, ended his life because of this officer's racism. So you cannot tell me that there's not police brutality going on. And how about all the cases that people aren't coming forward about? How about all the times that folks are beat, kicked, punched, beat down, and they don't even come forward? They just, they just take it because it's such a norm in our community. She knows it's happening, but she want to brush that under the rug because it's part of the culture.
Wow. Young ladies, first I want you all to, I did give a brief introduction of you, but introduce yourselves. Tell us a little bit about the movement that you're involved with, and then give me a perspective from the point of view of young people about the relationship between the Black community and the police in the city and the region, because oftentimes, though you all wind up being victims many times of police abusing their authority, we don't often hear your perspective. So tell us what your perspective is.
Absolutely. And that's one of the reasons why we appreciate being invited into this space, to be able to shed light on our perspective as young people. And I know that term young is subjective, but I'm 26 and Steph is 28. And
yeah, y'all young. Y'all young.
Yeah, no, I consider myself young still, but I guess some people, to other people, that's halfway from something. So we're here representing 413 Stay Woke, Stay Active. And that's right now it's a private group for security and safety purposes, but it stemmed from the two of us collaborating with folks in the 413 area on a series of marches, protests, and rallies. So, we started with the Holyoke March that happened on June 2nd, 2020, as the city's response to not only the murder of George Floyd, but the city's response to want to wake up the folks in leadership, their police department, their mayor, to say we do have issues with police brutality in Holyoke. And then from there, it moved on to areas like Ludlow, Agawam, Springfield had two marches. I mean, it's been happening all over the place. And so 413 Stay Woke, Stay Active began as a Facebook group in an effort to funnel anyone and everyone from the 413 area who was ready to jump into direct action into one location. And then that way we could kind of figure out what people's strengths are in the realm of dismantling systemic oppression and systemic racism. And we could then kind of redeploy them back into our communities with very specific targeted goals around dismantling these systems of oppression. So that's a broad overview, if I could. The focus of 413 Stay Woke, Stay Active is really to hone in on young people of color and our level of leadership, and to build those skills up, and also to create a place for white allies. We prefer the term accomplices, but folks who are past the point of being taught where their privilege lies and what power they have, and who are ready to step in and use that privilege and power in a way that serves the movement in terms of liberation for Black lives. And so that's 413 Stay Woke, Stay Active. And we certainly have an opinion on police brutality and some of the commissioner's remarks in regards to Springfield. So I don't know if you want to.
Hi, y'all. So first, as you were speaking, and I was thinking about the comment that, the comment of, oh, well, Black on Black crime, and you guys are killing each other, so why are you upset that we're killing you? And it's like this weird idea of like, first of all, just that's the most racist thing you can say. Like, you kill each other, so why can't we kill you? You know what I mean? It's like they don't understand how it sounds like it's very. It sounds like it's coming from a caring place, but really it's like, you get to do it, why can't we? So I just think it's funny that people use that as a way to. I feel like that's funny that people use it as an excuse. But to the commissioner and her statements, I think that it's scary, I think, for the people. Like that live video that we saw, I think it was really scary. I think there was a moment for me where it hit me. Like, this woman has been a commissioner for how long? This woman is supposed to serve and protect the people of color in this area. And she believes that we are racist. And racism is on both sides, and that it's impossible to eradicate in the police department. And for somebody like that to say something like that, I think it was scary, and I think that
let me give them some background. Those who may not know what you're talking about. So there's a video that's out there where young activists went to speak with the commissioner at the police department, and she said some very controversial, incendiary things in that video. Some of what Stephanie is talking about, when they asked her, did racism need to be eradicated within the police department? The commissioner alluded to racism needed to be eradicated on both sides. The old Donald Trump mantra, that is a problem on both sides. She said it was impossible to be eradicated, but it was not just a problem within the police department. I guess the community must be racist against the police as well. And she said some other things in that video that Stephanie is alluding to. So I just wanted to kind of give them the backdrop of where you were coming from with that.
Okay, cool, thanks. I guess that video has me kind of in that headspace. I don't, if you can like maybe jog my memory again a little bit on the question that you had given us so that I can answer it and not go into
just your perspective in terms of the relationship between Black youth and the police. I know we have a general understanding or opinion in terms of their relationship with the Black community at large, but I'm certain there are some nuances that exist, particularly with their relationship with Black youth that may be unique.
Okay. Yeah, so I think that the Black youth and the police, I feel like the relationship starts when they're in elementary school and cops take them on ride-alongs and they take them to hockey games and they take them to baseball games and, you know, they play basketball with them for a few years. And then once young people start becoming teenagers, young Black people become teenagers, young people of color become teenagers, I believe that the police start to just look at them as they always look at people of color. I feel like that relationship, it starts and ends there at a Little League game. And, you know, once we become older, we just are whatever they see on TV. You know, they look at us and they think we're all what they see in you know, in hip hop, you know, shows and what they see on television shows about, you know, inner city and things like that. So I think the disconnect is really huge. And I think it's, I can't even think of ways to start to mend that, because I think once a police officer has an idea about you as a person of color, as a young person of color, it's hard to change their mind. And so I don't know, I want to think of ways that we can start doing that. But if somebody has it in their mind already that you are a young person of color and this is what you are, you know, they have this like blanket over us that we are just all the same. I feel like at that point, it's really hard to change someone's mind. And I think, you know, the youth need a lot of education about what our rights are. I don't believe a lot of people understand that we have a lot of rights as young people. And just, you know, as voters, as citizens, we have rights. We do not have to just, you know, give them all this power. We do not have to just listen and obey what they say because they have a badge. At the end of the day, they take that badge off and they go home and they're humans. And so I think it really is about educating the young people to understand, like, look, we don't have to sit back and just do what they say. We don't have to sit back and listen to what they have to say. So yeah, I really think it starts with educating the youth on what they're right.
Let's flesh out that point. You said at the end of the day, they take off their badge and go home. Counselor Hurst, there exists in the city on paper. It's not actualized. A rule that supervisors of particular departments, police, fire, etc., are supposed to be residents of the city of Springfield. So when they do take off that badge and go home, ostensibly they should be going home to a Springfield resident where they live around people that live in Springfield. Their kids go to school or grandkids go to school in Springfield. They shop in Springfield. They do, you know, so they're actually policing people who they live around. But unfortunately, when they take off that badge, most of them don't go home to Springfield. The commissioner goes home to Wilbraham. Many of them get waivers from the mayor to where they don't live in the city. How important is it that residency should actually be enforced so that these folks who come to our city and work jobs 9 to 5 and bring hundreds of thousands of dollars in payroll and benefits out of our city actually put that money back into the city or live in the city or live around the residents that they police?
I think it's huge. I think the fact that, you know, one of the problems that we face here in Springfield is what you said, is the actual monitoring of residency. It's clear that the supervisors are required to live in the city of Springfield. In addition to that, you know, I'm proud of my colleagues on the city council We passed a law last year that said any new officers need to live in the city of Springfield for 10 years prior to moving out of the city. So it wasn't everything that we wanted, but it certainly was a start. But we all know when you live in the city, you're invested in the city. And when you live in this city, you're concerned about Charlie in a different way that you're concerned about Charlie if you don't live in the city. And so I used to tell and be an advocate and a proponent of educators when I used to teach living in the city, because not only could you have a conversation with Johnny, but you would also run into the grocery store and see Johnny's mom, or you would go to the church where Johnny worshiped at. And so you'd have more of a connection and you'd actually be able to relate to Johnny and everything that Johnny was going through. And so I think we certainly need to get back to that. It's difficult, though, when your HR, who's in charge of enforcing it, doesn't live in the city himself and has received a waiver. So it needs to be a priority from the mayor's office on down to monitor where these individuals are living. I mean, I just heard from the fire department that one of the new district chiefs who had a year to move into the city is using an address of, I believe, his aunt who lives in the city of Springfield. So it's problematic, and we need to have a better effort at from the mayor's office to say, listen, this is what's going to happen. This is what we believe in, and we're going to enforce it, and we're going to monitor whether you do indeed live in the city or whether you're just gaming the system. And I think that's part of the problem and speaks to a broader issue when it comes to police and the brutality that we're facing here in the city of Springfield. We got to get the little things right first, and then we can move on to some of the broader issues.
And so part of what the mayor uses as a justification when granting these waivers is, we need the best and the brightest, in our city. And oftentimes, I guess what he's insinuating is we can't get the best and the brightest from among Springfield residents. And I mean, to me, that's insulting in and of itself for the mayor of a city to insult the citizens of that city, to say, hey, none of you are bright enough or good enough to fill these particular positions. So we've got to always go outside of the city to get somebody. And so I'm going to grant these waivers. And oftentimes that's code word for, we need some white folks. And we don't want to draw from the pool of a city that is predominantly Black and Latino. And so we got to grant these waivers to get the best and the brightest. Councilor Whitfield, what is that all about when they say stuff like that, that they need the best and the brightest, so that we got to go outside the city to do that?
Nepotism. I mean, the best and the brightest is somebody's cousin, godchild, brother's child, white people. We all know what it means. We have some great talent in the city of Springfield. A lot of times folks with the talent don't get the opportunity, or the minute that they walk through the door, they're judged, or maybe the name on their application shows that they're Black, so they don't even make it to the interview. I had a similar situation happen recently, and it wasn't with the police department, but it was with the sheriff's department. Actually, Delano Walker's brother applied to be a correctional officer, didn't get the interview, never been in trouble, has a bachelor's degree, was in school for his master's, definitely can pass the PT test because he was training, and he didn't even get the opportunity until I called and said, what's going on here? Because one of his friends with less experience, with no degree, got the interview and got into the academy. And I was like, we can't just keep allowing this to happen. But how many times does that happen and they don't have a Tracy Whitfield to lobby for them, or they don't know where to go to get support to get into the door? We know it happens all the time. His name is Zaquam. Right. So he was judged by his name. Mm-hmm. Just like my children will be judged by their name. Sequoia Whitfield, Jelani Bland, but I teach my kids that they are original. Be proud of who you are. Be proud of your name and your culture and your heritage. And don't let anybody say that you're not qualified for a position. Go further. Don't take their word, for example. I'm proud that this young man came to me and said, can you help me? I will give it my best shot. And anybody else that comes forward, I will give it my best shot. But it's oftentimes too much.
oftentimes young people who face roadblocks like that don't know where to go or where to turn, and they just kind of take the L and move on. How important is it, young ladies, for young people to be able to advocate for themselves, or at least know what resources are available, what people they should talk to and go to assist them when they do face roadblocks like that, so they can push back against that type of injustice?
Yeah, I think it's paramount. I think that is the number one thing that I teach and educate on when I come into contact with younger people. I teach high school right now. The joke is that they're all taller than me. And before that, I was working with middle and elementary and high school, and some students who were just getting into college. So it was their first year into college. And the biggest conversation that we have before we get into reading a book or writing an essay is about advocating for yourselves, knowing what it is that you need. And if you don't know how to figure out what you need, finding a caring adult who can assist you in that process, and then being able to advocate for yourself. As a student, so I grew up in Springfield, I went to Commerce. I remember seeing young girls being thrown across cop cars, right? Like, because we had police in schools. I recall walking into the schools with 2 metal detectors, and then the wand that they wand you down with as a regular thing, as a part of going into school before I can open my textbook, before I can eat my breakfast. And then as an educator, I've seen 5-year-olds, kindergartners, be pulled out of classroom by officers in the school. So there's a lot of dynamics that I think are working against young Black kids in this community. And so from as young as 5, I understand that it's important to teach them to say, that hurt me, ow. Go home and tell mommy, go home and tell daddy, and then let's find an advocate that can stand with mommy and daddy to speak against what's going on. The challenge, I think that's huge, that I see, that I personally experience, is that we're not taught in schools, not only about the history that's accurate and Black people's role in it, but a lot of the time, for example, when we think of things like Black History Month, what's dwelled upon is kind of the harm that was done in slavery and so on and so forth. But our students are not taught the revolution that was happening all the while, right? So when you mentioned at the beginning of your show, Frederick Douglass's speech, that is an exact, he calls into question the Constitution. He calls into question the way that we challenge authority, because it's our natural human right. And these are things that young people aren't taught. Not only at all, but like not even in Black History Month. And so there's a piece that's missing for our young people in the realm of education. And I don't think, my parents specifically, like a lot of Black parents will say, we're teaching our kids at home, and that's important and that's a priority. But where a kid spends more than 50% of their time during a week in a building that's not giving them tools to advocate for themselves and to be the best version of themselves when a system is coming against you, that I see a problem with that. And so I think that advocacy is a huge tool picking up, but it's something that's missing. And so I think I do see a lot of programs. I like that you spoke to the mentoring programs that do exist in Springfield, because how dare the commissioner say that XYZ isn't happening in the city. I'm a product of programs through the YMCA, through the Boys and Girls Club, through after school the dual enrollment between STIC and Commerce. I'm a product of those programs, and lots of other people my age are as well. And so if those didn't exist, we wouldn't be able to sit here and talk to you today.
And I think that it has to do a lot too with just intergenerational, experiences, right? Like, I know a lot of my experience in learning to advocate for myself was learning from people that came before me, learning from people who've been through it and they understand. So I think it's really about learning from people who have learned, you know what I mean? If you don't have somebody to be an example for you, you're not going to know that you can speak up for yourself. And then that starts in school when you learn. Many of us don't know the real deep story of Sojourner Truth and Harriet Tubman and Frederick Douglass and all these people that I talk about advocacy, like, you know what I mean? They snuck and learned to read and all these things. So I think it's about learning that in history class, but then also learning that from real life people that you know and that you admire. And I think it's up to us too to provide resources to be more accessible to young people of color, to be able to find advocates that can teach them so that they can learn to advocate for themselves.
Absolutely. What we find is there's a inordinate amount of the victims of police brutality and misconduct that are younger people. When we think about the Mike Browns and the Trayvon Martins and the Tamir Rices and so many out there, and even here in our city, it's very important that we teach young people what they need to do to stay safe, and also what they need to do to be able to advocate for themselves. And it's also important that we have those community advocates such as Counselor Hurst and Counselor Whitfield and others who will speak out on these issues. Are you all finding it? How are you all finding it, counselors? Because this is to me, this is a new paradigm in our city. This is something new. I've been active for 30 years in community advocacy, and never have I seen it where the council has been so active in terms of pushing back against the system. What type of flack are you all getting, if any, or what is the response from community residents in terms of the pushback that you all have been giving the administration, not just on police issues, but on the budget, on various other issues that we see? I want to get your take on that, and then I've got another guest I want to bring on to give us a quick update, Senator Eric Lesser, momentarily. But what are you getting? What feedback are you getting from community residents?
I'll defer to you, Counselor.
The feedback that I'm getting is amazing. I mean, folks want to be educated. They never seen so much transparency before. They're getting to the root cause. They're getting to the truth of what's happening in their government, what's happening to the taxpayer dollar, what's happening with the administration. And they are glad to have folks like us bringing it to the forefront. I mean, of course, we're going to get folks that don't agree or give flack or pushback, but for those folks, I just ignore them because I'm going to continue to do what I do regardless of what they have to say. So to me, I listen to everyone's concern. I respect your opinion, but I will agree to disagree. And I will tell you that I agree to disagree because I worked for the city. So I kind of got a behind the scenes look at the internalized racism at the city of Springfield level. And ever since I worked there, I think I started working there in 2010, I wanted to bring it to the forefront. And so I think it's my calling from the Lord at this time that I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. And so I know that everyone's not going to always agree with me, and I'm fine with that. I respect that. But the support has just been overwhelmingly amazing. And it gives me the courage that I need to continue on, because it's a fearful feeling in the beginning to come to the forefront when you haven't really been in the forefront to this magnitude before. And so the encouragement that I receive, and I can only speak for me, and I'll let Counselor Hurst answer, is just an encouragement that I am doing the right thing, that folks do want to know the truth, and we're going to keep giving it to them, no matter who's hurt by it.
All right.
Yeah, I think the response from the community has been overwhelmingly positive. I think you need to keep pushing, and you need to have the courage to keep pushing, and you also need to know that you have the support of the community at large. The issues that we're talking about, are not solely focused on race. They're more so focused on justice, and the entire city of Springfield wants to see. Or certainly the overwhelming majority want to see justice. I think, the problem that we've had on the council for a while is that folks have not had the courage, or not always had the courage, to speak truth to power. And so one of the reasons why I appreciate Councilor Whitfield, and actually the guest that you're getting ready to have on, Senator Lesser, is that they certainly have not been afraid to be at the forefront in terms of having a discussion around these difficult issues. I think what people want to see is exactly what you're seeing right here. And that's different generations coming together to affect change. And I think the fact that you have the young people who, in my opinion, have been leading the way on this issue, at least here in the city of Springfield, is tremendous. And if we can do anything from our standpoint to help advise, help guide, then that's exactly what we should be doing. We're going to continue to press forward. And I think radio shows like yours, Bishop Swan, certainly go a long way towards bringing these difficult truths to light. And, it's up to people have to deal with their own issues. And if you have a problem with the things that we're bringing up and the issues that we're bringing to the forefront, those are your own issues that you have to deal with, because we've been struggling with these issues for a long time, and we just haven't had the courage to bring them to the forefront and fight with this type of tenacity that we have now. So it's a collective effort, and I think we need a collective effort moving forward. So thank you, Bishop.
Absolutely. Let me bring on who comes on every first Monday to give us a Statehouse update, Senator Eric Lesser. We've got about 10 minutes left in the radio broadcast on WTCC, but then we continue on beyond that with our streaming audience. So while we're still live on WTCC, let me bring in Senator Eric Lesser with our Statehouse update. Good morning, Senator.
Good morning. How are you, Bishop?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. No, I was enjoying the segment you just did. So thank you to everyone. It's great to be on Zoom or Restream. Which program is this, Bishop?
You're on StreamYard. You're on StreamYard now.
Nice. All right. Well, good to see everyone. And we could dive right in, but I thought what might be most relevant right now is actually this morning the state Senate is unveiling a criminal justice and police reform package. So, Bishop, I defer to you what you want to get into first, or if you want to go straight to questions.
Go right ahead with that.
Okay. So if you forgive, just bear with me a second here, because I'm going to read a little bit, because I just want to make sure that all the elements of this are presented to your listeners and to your viewers. And once I kind of get through the presentation of what's in the bill, we could take questions, calls, however you want to do it. And I just want to thank the guests that you had on before me, and of course Councilor Whitfield and President Hurst, who have been, have really been in many respects the inspiration for a lot of these reforms. So there's really kind of three key elements to the package that's being presented this morning. The first is to reduce the risk of police misconduct and to reduce the risk of police brutality, which we all know, of course, is a very serious and urgent issue. But the second, that's right in line with what we're talking about this morning. Exactly. The second element that this bill is attempting to address is shifting on a broader level, shifting the orientation from force and punishment towards de-escalation and helping. And this is really in line with, what has been a movement in certain aspects of law enforcement. Certainly the Eric Holder Justice Department worked on these issues, the 21st century police plan that the Obama administration put together. The idea is really shifting and reorienting law enforcement away from a kind of warrior mentality and towards a guardianship and partnership mentality. And then the third element, and a very important element, and one that we do need to acknowledge, is fighting racism and just pure and simple, fighting racism and racial injustice. So it's really those three elements: reducing the risk of misconduct, shifting the orientation of policing towards one of partnership and community-oriented models, and fighting racism outright. So I'll dive in here and give you the presentation. So first, there's a whole set of proposals that will narrow the legal authorization for the use of force. So one element that will be in the legislation is an outright ban on chokeholds. We know that there's federal legislation, but this would be a statewide ban on the use of chokeholds by police. Another element would eliminate arrest or escape as occasions for use of deadly force. Another would eliminate evidence preservation as a predicate for no-knock entry. So oftentimes, one of the rationales that's given for a no-knock raid on a house or on a dwelling is they claim that they're concerned that there would be destruction of evidence, in the minute or so or half a minute that it takes to get through the door. And we're saying on a state level that the potential civil rights violations overwhelm the concern there about potential elimination of evidence preservation. So a little bit technical legally, but a very important piece here of, again, reorienting the orientation. The other thing is the other element of this is there's a whole set of restrictions on the use of crowd control tools. So again, it's an emphasis on prospective de-escalation planning. And also much stricter reporting and review of crowd control techniques. So, for example,
does that deal with tear gas, rubber bullets?
Exactly. Yeah, that's what this is targeted at. So this is exactly targeted at use of rubber bullets, use of tear gas, use of pepper spray. We're tightening very significantly the criteria for when that's allowed. And also requiring an immediate reporting and review process if or when it's deployed. So that was obviously that has been a very significant issue at the protests and at the marches around the country. I'd point out medically, the National Association of Ophthalmologists, eye doctors, have advocated for an outright ban on rubber bullets because of what it can, do obviously to people's eyes. So this was a very important element. We also create a new commission to review use of force rules in corrections. One element of this bill that isn't addressed is how use of force operates in inside correctional settings. The focus of this legislation is much more specifically on police out on the street, but we acknowledge that there needs to be some thoughtfulness around that. So we do create a commission to review those use of force guidelines within our correctional setting. I'd point out that also, and I know you were involved with this, Bishop Swan, and a lot of the other guests have been involved with this, but there was a major criminal justice reform package that the state did 2 years ago, and that included some of that as well. So this is building off that. The next thing, I'll kind of go quickly here because I know we're getting towards the end, but there's also going to be a major increase in police accountability. And this is, again, one of the really key parts of this bill. First is we would create a statewide police certification authority. And this is the bill that the governor actually had filed as well. And this would create a statewide certification board. Every police officer in the state, just like every doctor, every lawyer, a lawyer has a bar exam. A doctor has a board of medical examiners. Teachers need certifications. The only real profession in our state that right now doesn't require a statewide certification process are police. So we would put in place a statewide certification process. And very importantly, the board that oversees those certifications would be responsible for proactively investigating misconduct and receiving complaints from the community about misconduct, and where appropriate can revoke the certification of officers who are involved in misconduct, and it's found through an investigation that misconduct happened. And we would put a requirement in that communities have to hire certified police. So if a police officer certification is withdrawn, they would not be able to work in the state of Massachusetts anymore. So this would be a very important tool because it would take the investigation process out of local DAs and out of local departments, and it would place it in a statewide board that would be much more independent and would be able to be frankly much more divorced from political pressure. There's a lot more kind of details in here. We disallow qualified immunity defenses. We're going to prohibit non-disclosure agreements in police misconduct settlements, but I am keeping an eye on the time. I see it's 9:58. So
now that is in the Senate this morning. Is that sponsored by the Senate, or has that gone through the House?
Yeah, so great question. But so there's a press conference this morning at the Statehouse unveiling the proposal, and our hope is that we are going to be voting this week. Okay. So we have a caucus on Wednesday. We have a formal session on Thursday. At that point, it does need to pass the House before being presented to the governor. So at this point, it's a Senate proposal. I do expect that it will pass. Certainly, there's going to be amendments. There's going to be a very robust debate on it over the next several days. But that is the Senate's proposal at this point.
So let me transition out of the WTCC audience, and then I'll continue on with our guests. Those of you who are streaming, stay right there. Those who are listening by way of WTCC, you can definitely log on to my Facebook or YouTube or Twitter and catch us with the Overdrive edition. We've got some important things yet to talk about, and we've got an important announcement that is going to be coming up momentarily. So you're welcome to join our streaming audience. And for all of those listening in the Pioneer Valley, it's always a pleasure being with you here on WTCC FM. And until the next time I talk to you and you talk to me, always remember God loves you, and so do I. We'll be right back. Let's touch that down.
Walter Scott, say his name. Walter, say his name. Walter Scott, say his name. Walter Scott, won't you say his name? Jermaine Reed, say his name. Jermaine Reed, say his name. Jermaine Reed, say his name. Jermaine Reed, won't you say his name? Philip White, say his name. Philip White, say his name. Philip White, say his name. Philip White, won't you say his name? Say his name. 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 Say his name.
All right, and we're back with you here on the Spoken Word Overdrive, the extended edition. Senator Eric Lesser was giving us a Statehouse update, and I see some questions, Senator, where someone is asking this proposed statewide board. They were asking when is that going to take place? Obviously, it can only take place if the legislation is passed and is signed into law. But the notion of a statewide board that deals with police misconduct issues is very similar to what we've been advocating for in the city of Springfield in terms of civilian review that the city council passed and is not being enforced by the mayor based on the legal opinion of his city solicitor. How important is it to have a board of civilians that deal with those issues as opposed to policing the police, which I find is very problematic?
Yeah. I can take that unless somebody else wants to jump in. I think first, this is bringing police in line with every other profession. And I think that's something that's important to recognize. Doctors, if you have an issue with your doctor, there's a state licensing board that you can complain to, and the complaint is investigated. They don't just take someone's word for it. They have resources and they investigate, and that makes everybody safer because when you go to a doctor that there's a standard that they're obligated to meet. The same is true with nurses. The same is true with hairstylists. The same is true with mechanics. The same is true with teachers. Every profession in our state has a set of criteria and licensing and standards, and has a group of professionals that oversee and enforce those standards. So it's really about bringing the police in line with the standards of conduct that are already in place for other professions. And I would say, I'd be curious what others think, but I think at the heart of this is accountability. I think that the heart of this is creating a culture where good police officers are supported and encouraged and given the training and given the resources. And we all know that there's a lot of people trying to do the right thing, but bad actors or actors that are abusing their position are dealt with and are dealt with in a fair way, but in a swift way and in a just way. And I'd point out that another element of the legislation that we have included is giving the Attorney General authority to conduct independent, what's called pattern and practice investigations. And so right now, the federal Department of Justice can do this on a federal level, but it's up to the Attorney General federally to decide this. And of course, they've got the whole country, so there's limited ability to do this department in Washington, so there's not a lot of faith in that. So what we want to do is create basically the equivalent of that on a state level, so that the Attorney General would be able to go in and proactively do what's called pattern and practice investigations, to take a look at police departments that maybe have chronic complaints and really systemic issues, and review the documents, interview the officers, interview witnesses, and put together much more kind of holistic and broad-reaching mandates for reform. That's a very, very important part of the legislation as well.
Wow. So, Councilor Whitfield, you think that's something that would be necessary in Springfield?
Absolutely. You know how I feel about the police commission. Accountability is key. We cannot have one person being the the judge and the jury. Like, that just doesn't logically make sense to me. Because incidents like Nathan Bill and with Ms. Fuentes, is that her name? Clarissa? Yeah. Those type of situations one person shouldn't have the authority and the power to make decisions in a bubble. I just don't agree with that logic. And I always bring to the forefront, just to be transparent, originally, I voted against the police commission. I was a newer counselor. I did not understand how citizens could know the laws of the police department and the rules. I didn't understand how they would know union laws. I didn't understand how they would logically make a judgment call on officers that were in misconduct situations. But once this came out, I know that 5 people having accountability has to be better than 1. I know that folks are smart and intelligent, and they can learn the laws and the rules, and they can be educated. There would be a lot of education. Before I was a city councilor, I didn't know what I know now, right? And so everything can be learned, taught, and trained. And I think that we need some young people like these young ladies on the call to be part of that police commission. We need these new voices, and we need folks that are going to make decisions that benefit the community and not the police department. And I do want to go on record to say that we are not anti-cops.
Right.
We love our police officers. I am the co-chair of the Mason Square C3. Someone wrote in a comment about community policing. It works. It works when the community and the organizations come together and they know each other and they learn about each other and they respect each other. And because you don't know the background detail of everybody's situation, you don't know why that registration may have expired. You don't know. So let's just have these conversations and let's communicate with each other. And in the C3, that happens often. And so I just wanted to comment that I still stand in support of community policing. But the police commission is very important, very needed. My opinion has changed. But I like to be transparent in case someone ever brings it up that I did know originally. I have changed my ways and my thinking. So
well, you live and you learn and you grow. And as you stated, anti-police brutality is not anti-police. Right. Anti-white supremacy is not anti-white. And people need to understand the difference between the two. But to that point, it is so critical and important, especially in light of what we have seen revealed from the police commissioner over the past couple of weeks. If someone has a mentality that police brutality is not a problem in Springfield, and that person has the sole authority to make decisions, as far as discipline goes, internal discipline of police. Well, if she doesn't think it's a problem, what kind of decisions is she going to be making when officers misbehave? And I think that was indicative of her bringing back those 5 indicted officers. If you've been convicted of filing a false police report, you obviously don't see any problem with those officers, being indicted for perjury or for trying to cover up a crime. And so when you have a board that has diverse persons with diverse opinions and diverse experiences on it, you have a better chance of getting some semblance of justice than you do with one person with their singular of thoughts and perspectives. Young people, what do you think about that?
Yeah,
Yes, and so the accountability piece is huge for us. Referring back to the video of the young people, it was us and a handful of others who really were looking to have a conversation with the commissioner a few days ago around. We were hoping that she would be able to acknowledge that there has been cases of police brutality in our community, that there are issues of racism within the Springfield Police Department. And, Bishop, where you started this conversation to say that the innate reaction to deflect and to not want to engage and have that conversation and to pacify and to name other people's names instead of taking responsibility for the role that she plays as the police commissioner was a huge problem for us in leaving that conversation. So, we're excited to hear about processes that potentially could pull that responsibility away from one person, and then ideally would open it up to folks in the community who are looking to see something shift drastically. I think that hearing this is a huge step in the right direction. I think the only challenge is that, it's like when you have a jury that is biased, right? So they're there to do a job, but then everyone on that jury gives a biased verdict. And so that would be the other challenge, where a lot of the conversation with the commissioner was around, what type of trainings is the police department engaging in regards to anti-racist work? It shouldn't just be a little bit of anti-bias training here and a little bit of diversity training there. And we as a community don't have to look at the numbers per se around, how many minority, I hate that term, that's the term that's on paper, right? How many minority officers are hired? It's about the training. And I believe that it comes from the top down. And so the same way that schools right now are hustling to shift from this traditional education to anti-racist education, and we understand that the curriculum can't just shift, the educators' minds have to also shift. And if they can't, then it's not appropriate for them to be educating our Black and brown young people. I believe it's the same in regards to the police commission or the commissioning group. So the rules and the policies and the laws do have to shift, but if the people who are responsible for enforcing them, their minds don't shift, then we're going to fall back into the same issues that we're in right now.
And wow. I'll point out on that, just to build off of that. So, one of the elements of the bill, and I apologize, I haven't gotten all the way through it. I can email you, Bishop Swan, the full text. So, if there's a lot, I know it's a lot to read kind of aloud, sure. But one of the pieces that we include under the kind of fight racism category that I mentioned, the 3 elements of what we're really focusing on is proactive education for police officers around the history of racism in the United States, the history of slavery, as well as the history of lynching and systemic racism. So actually, I'll just read the exact language in the bill is to introduce police training requirements on the history of slavery, lynching, and institutionalized racism. So, because again, I think that's a very important point. It's about creating consciousness shifts for people about where we are in society and what needs to change, and the iterative work here of catching up with history. And so the hope is that if we're proactively teaching police officers about that history, it will begin to shift the consciousness, and it will shift the behavior patterns into the future. So it's really coming from 2 directions, right? It's improving the oversight, improving the discipline, removing some of that day-to-day investigatory and discipline work out of the sort of immediate community and towards a broader level, state level, where there's more accountability. But then also it's about changing hearts and minds, frankly, and changing consciousness through education about the history of these struggles. So, the hope is that we can get at this from both directions.
Absolutely. I know you got to go, Senator. Any last remarks, and give them your contact information for anyone in the listening audience who wants to get in touch.
So it's a big week ahead with this bill we're going to probably do this on Thursday in the Senate as a whole. There'll be amendments leading up to that. People can always call 413-526-6501. Again, 526-6501. On Twitter @EricLesser, on Facebook @EricLesserMA, on Instagram @EricLesserMA, or email eric.lesser@masenate.gov.
All right. Always a pleasure to have you, and look forward to the next time.
All right.
All right.
Take
Take
care.
care. Yeah. All right. So let me do this. I want to get into this action that that we are preparing for, and also I want to open up the phone lines. If anyone wants to call in, 413-337-1867, 413-337-1867. So let's talk about next step. What needs to happen in this current space regarding this current commissioner to better police community relations in the city of Springfield? Anyone want to take a stab at that? What needs to happen?
I'll let the young folks go ahead and jump on in.
What needs to happen with the commissioner? So, to be honest, I didn't know too much about her before I met her the other day. And after hearing that she believes that there's racism coming from people of color, amongst other things, there were a few times that she said one thing, and then when we brought up the fact that we heard this from her officers, she changed her mind and said, well, okay, I did say that. But so seeing those things, just like inconsistencies with what she was saying, her believing that we are racist, and her getting upset when somebody in the crowd said that she doesn't understand our experience because she's white. It just shows that she cannot be commissioner for a city that is predominantly Black, for a city that is full of people of color. She sure enough does not understand where we're coming from and does not understand what our needs are. You know what I mean? So I just feel like, it's time to, it's like, get with it or get lost. And, it seems like she's not willing to get with it. So, there's that, the other option is left after that.
All right. Simbrit?
Yeah, I would just echo that. We left that conversation, and I just want to say that there's a whole set of young people in the city of Springfield right now that have been activated, are activating in the name of justice, as Justin Hurst, mentioned earlier, around the way that people in this community have been treated and the way that we understand we deserve to be treated. And in the conversation around law enforcement and the police commissioner, somebody who can't acknowledge those faults and then take immediate action and then be transparent around that to change it should not be the police commissioner. So what's next is that she should not be the police commissioner. What's next is that there should be a way to hold our law enforcement accountable. And that sounds like the police commission might be a good next step, and that it shouldn't just be one person who has the sole authority to make those decisions and to make those demands without considering the needs of the community that they were hired to protect and serve. And so I don't know if this is the time to mention that actual next step. Should we leave that to Tracy, or?
It's on y'all. Who wants to take a shot at it?
It's on y'all.
All right.
It's on y'all. It's
all
you
right,
guys. Petition.
Okay, so what we have as a tangible next step, when we say 413 stay woke, stay active, is that there has to be action taken beyond just the education. And so what we have as the next step, in conjunction with many folks in the 413 area who support it, is a petition to remove Police Commissioner Clapprood from her position as commissioner. That there would be a vote of no confidence. And if I'm honest and transparent, I'm still learning about the way that our local politics work. So that might be something that Tracy has to speak to in detail, but that there would be a vote of no confidence in the police commissioner, and that we would ask the mayor, or we would ask the mayor to hold folks accountable and remove the police commissioner from her role.
All right.
Yeah, and just to add to that a little bit, I feel like for too long, she hasn't been held accountable for her actions. And in turn, people who look like her and are like her within the police department are not being held accountable for their actions. And so it's just dangerous. It's dangerous for us. There's no us winning. We can sit down and talk to her day after day. We can talk to her 24 hours out of the day. If she has not been held accountable and she does not hold her police officers accountable, you're always at risk. And we are always going to be the ones that they're always going to be the ones that come out on top. And we can't allow for that to happen any longer.
I think that I know that we're of the mindset and conversations that we have with our peers around the fact that this is a life or death situation. When our law enforcement can't be held accountable to treat us to treat us as human beings, it's a life or death situation. I know that all of us in this space and everyone watching has knows someone or has been in a situation, an encounter with an officer, particularly in Springfield, where you didn't know if you were going to go home. And that hurts to say out loud. And we're taking action. We're just ready to move to the next step. It's no more conversation. The video that was circulating and that will continue to circulate around our conversation with her shows that conversations don't work. Protests, we are a huge advocate of protests, but 2 weeks ago, more than 2,000 Springfield residents came out and marched down to the Springfield Police Department, and that didn't work. And roundtable conversations didn't work. And maybe whether or not they show up to the police, the C3 meeting, that didn't work. And so it's not to take power away from those actions, but the petition is specifically moving to remove her from her role as acting commissioner.
Right. Protests get people woke. And then if that doesn't work, then we have to take action. So
we're talking about a citizen's petition, collection of signatures from citizens asking for the mayor to remove Commissioner Clapperud from office. Let's say that happens. Let's just, hypothetically, there's enough pressure put on for that to happen. What do you think the step after that should be? Because hypothetically, what could happen is the mayor can do what he did with Commissioner Clapperud. In spite of cries from the community that she was not the best fit for that office, in spite of cries from the community that there were some underlying issues with her tenure at the Springfield Police Department that made her unfit to be the commissioner, in spite of cries from the community that asked him to do a nationwide search, because whenever it comes to Black people moving up into particular offices, they want to do a search because they got to get the best and the brightest. But when they want to put their their road dog, their ace boon coon, their homie, or when they want to do the nepotism that Councilor Whitfield talked about, they just kind of move them up and put them in office, no search, no nothing, which is what was done in this particular case. So what do you want if the mayor removes her from office? What should be the next step after that prevents him from just going down the line and getting the next sycophant or person who's ingrained into the politics of this department and just making them her replacement?
Well, I personally think that there should be a national search, Bishop, and I know that you were really a proponent of a national search. And I think that there should be some citizens that also review the applications. I don't think that while the mayor will ultimately make the appointment, I don't think that the mayor should have the total say so on who is representing or who is overseeing the police that work in our community. And so I think that's a step. I want to say thank you to the young people for learning ways to, I'm sorry, folks, that's my grandbaby.
You got a grandbaby?
I do. I love her. It's my life. But I want to thank the young people for coming forward and even just trying to learn the different policies, to learn procedures, to learn what they can do to figure out how to use their voice in a strategic way that can make a difference for the community. And so when they talked about the petition or the vote of no confidence and they asked, well, does that really work? Honestly, I don't know, but it can't hurt to do something. Like, we cannot just sit on the sidelines and be quiet and not use our voices and not do anything. We have to keep petitions going. We have to keep applying pressure via protest. We have to keep calling the administration and expressing our disappointment in the things that's going on in the city of Springfield. We have to take all of the avenues that we can to put pressure until the change that we want is made. And then when that doesn't happen, we have to use our voice through our vote. Now, we have over 100 residents register to vote. So registration isn't the problem, it's the education. Folks don't know what elected officials do or supposed to do. And so we have to figure out how to learn this. And sometimes we got to take the steps on our own, and sometimes we just have to ask the questions. And a lot of political leaders will be willing to sit and talk to you one-on-one or in a group and let you know what our responsibilities are. And so if this doesn't work, we have the time to find someone who will represent the community as a whole if the mayor isn't going to listen to his residents. And so we have to go at all angles. It's not just one method that will work. I mean, people can research and see what has worked in other communities and bring it to the table. Like I told these young people before, when the counselors, when elected officials bring ideas forward, a lot of times they get those ideas from the community residents, although they're putting the idea forward. And so I don't want folks to be fooled that elected officials know the answers to everything, because we don't. We get suggestions, ideas, ordinance, rules, laws from you guys. You guys do a lot of the background research, and then we just take it a step further. And so I just want folks to get involved as much as possible. Support these young ladies on this petition, because they worked hard to get the information and put it together. So I'm going to mute and Bishop, let you answer, because my granddaughter wanna be fussing right now. But I just wanted to put those things out there. She wants to talk to. Yes, your voice will be heard, baby. Your voice, and you will vote. And so let's get out here and vote. Let's get out here and rally together and see how we can work together to make the changes together. So I'm super proud of Simbra, and I'm super proud of Stephanie, my baby, for everything that you guys are doing. And just keep pushing and keep learning and keep growing and keep organizing and keep doing everything that you're doing, because at some point it's going to work, and it's going to educate other people on how to do it.
Right.
If I could just add to,
go right ahead.
If I could just add, as Tracy was talking, I'm thinking like, the reality is we're here to apply pressure. It is summertime. So, when I mentioned earlier the fact that there's a lot of young people out here who are activated, have been activated, etc. We are here to apply pressure. We don't tire easy. And so the petition I saw that it's linked in this chat, but you can find it at change.org. It's a no confidence petition to remove Springfield Police Commissioner Cheryl Clapprood. Please, when you get access to that petition, share it. But that is one avenue. We will be applying pressure. And the other reality is that the focus right now is Cheryl Clapprood, and we're asking for the mayor of Springfield, Mayor Sarno, to step up. And if the mayor of Springfield can't step up, then we can apply pressure there too. So
Absolutely. So, in spite of literally millions of dollars that have been paid out in lawsuits for police brutality cases, in spite of literally dozens of officers currently under indictment, whether by the federal government or by the state, for police brutality cases, this commissioner is saying police brutality is not a problem with the Springfield Police Department. That in and of itself is problematic. When the commissioner says, I don't have a problem with police brutality with my officers, and she is yet defending those cases that are currently working their way through the criminal justice system. She's still saying, we don't really know what happened in the Nathan Bill case. She's still saying, we don't really know what happened in the Gregory Bigda case. So she's still coming to the defense of rogue police officers under criminal indictment, going through cases in federal or state court, and then throwing the community under the bus, i.e. the problem is community leaders like Bishop Swan, or the problem is young black men killing each other. The problem is keeping these black kids out of gangs, etc. She has no problem being full-throated in her condemnation of black community leaders and of the black community in general, but still waffles and won't concede anything when it comes to her officers, even though all of the evidence with the taxpayer money being spent to settle lawsuits and cases, and with them being indicted, she won't waffle. I mean, she won't concede any wrongdoing by the police. I mean, that speaks volumes in and of itself. And we cannot have someone at the head of our department with that type of mentality. Somebody want to jump in, or I can keep talking.
I wonder, this is kind of like a side note. I wonder what would happen if she asked her officers of color their experience with police officers when they're out of uniform. We spoke with 4 officers after the Springfield March, and she told them to tell us they couldn't take a knee because it was it symbolized the position that officer was in when George Floyd was murdered. And that was just something that they were taught to tell us. As you see in the live video, she told us the real reason why is because if we kneel for you now, that's telling you that we are going to obey your request. And where does it end? And that was what she said. So, but when we spoke to those officers and asked why wouldn't they kneel, we also got into a deeper conversation because it was 3 officers of color. And, I told them, I'm like, you're really loyal to your job and to the blue code and all those things. But what happens when you go home at the end of the day and you take your uniform off? Because I'm sure all 3 of you have been pulled over by your own officers because they mistook you for, a citizen that wasn't a cop. And so, it's easy for a white person to say they don't experience racism. It's easy for a white cop to say they don't think that there's police brutality because they never experienced it. But it's funny that she won't speak to police brutality, but she'll speak on black crime, and she'll speak on gangs. So she'll speak on things that she has no experience with, and speak to a community that she honestly has nothing to do with other than coming to work in Springfield.
That's it.
Right. And so I don't know. I think I kind of went on a tangent a little bit. I forgot what my point was, but yeah, it's just, at the end of the day, we need people, even on this citizens commission, board. We need people who understand. We need people from all walks of life that are going to understand every single area, because it's too easy for somebody to say they don't experience police brutality. Yes, you're a white officer. No, you don't experience police brutality. You don't experience racism. And so, we need to figure out, we can work, we're working on it. We're going to figure out how to make it so that this is fair, and that whoever is there believes Black Lives Matter, and that as moving forward, we can make the city safe. Because honestly, I know that a lot of people are more afraid of police officers than they are of the gang members and the black on black crime that exists somewhere. I don't know what that really means, but so moving forward, it's about people from different experiences.
And let me just say for the record, there is no such thing as black on black crime.
Exactly.
That is a misnomer. People kill and commit crimes within their proximity. And the reality is America is still a very segregated place with black neighborhoods, white neighborhoods, Asian neighborhoods, etc. The reality is this. Yes, 92% of blacks that are murdered by other blacks. 90% of whites that are murdered by other white people. But no one ever says white on white crime. 89% of Asians that are murdered by Asians. Okay. 88% of Latinos that are murdered by Latinos. No one ever says Latino on Latino crime or Asian on Asian crime, but there's this misnomer about black on black crime because they want to paint the picture of black people as savages. And because of the fact that black people are the ones that are predominantly profiled and abused by police. They want to deflect. When they want to deflect from that, they go to the old mantra of black on black crime. The case in point, when for the 12 years that stop and frisk was in effect in New York, 5 million black men were pulled over, stopped, frisked, profiled, hunted. More black men were stopped and frisked than exist in the city of New York. I mean, how do you stop 5 million black men and there aren't 5 million black men in New York? That's because everybody who was black, everybody who was visiting, everyone who came through New York was subject to be stopped and frisked. Now, when you profile people to that level, obviously, and then when you arrest them, for petty crimes or for no reason at all, the numbers are going to look like, you know, they're committing more crimes, they're getting into more trouble. That's not the case. If you profile me more often, if I'm 9 times more likely to be stopped, 29 times more likely to be convicted, that automatically brings the numbers up. And so the reality is black on black crime is a figment of the white imagination. Matter of fact, my friend D.L. Hughley puts it like this: the most dangerous place for a black person to exist is in the mind of a white person.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that how to phrase without, so we know that within the police academy and within the training and within institutes of higher education where there are criminal justice programs, that the suspects, the suspects in the training are often Black and Latino. Like those are the faces that they put up when they say, hypothetically, XYZ is happening, and what is your role as an officer in your future job, right? So this is the training that the majority of the white officer, every officer is getting it, but our police forces are majority white. And so this is the training that they're getting before they even hit the streets in their squad car, before they even get asked to police the neighborhood schools, or when the clubs are letting out and they're on the street. This is the training they're getting, that people of color, right, condition that people of color are violent and need to be controlled and contained. And so what they're acting on in the street beyond their own prejudice and racism, which is real, is what they're trained to act on. And that's the piece where we ask for transparency from our Springfield law enforcement and policy change, and folks who are in charge to be shifted as well. Because my parents used to always say it starts at home and ends abroad, right? So it starts at home. And if this is the training that these people are getting as far as how to police communities of color, beyond the fact, I mean, I'm in awe at, I didn't know before this call that even though there's a requirement to live in Springfield, that there are so many waivers that are given for folks to be able to finesse that kind of situation. That's a shame. That's a shame, and they should be embarrassed, and they need to be held accountable. Not anymore. So that's where this petition is coming from.
Absolutely.
If an officer is raised in, you know, East Longmeadow and has never met or experienced a Black person on a personal level, and their whole training is seeing hypothetical situations with Black and brown people as criminals, as soon as you step into the streets of Springfield, you're gonna think every single person of color that you run into is like the people that they trained you to apprehend and to brutalize, you know. And that's just scary. So we need to see into that, like what Semper said about the transparency. We need to see what pictures are they using? Are they for these hypothetical situations? Are you making it even? Are you making it so that there's an even amount of white people and Black people and people of all colors being used as hypotheticals, and you know, so much more. But we definitely need to understand, and we need a say. I think citizens need a say in a lot of those things as well.
Absolutely. A couple things. I see you, Brother Dorsey. You were alluding to saying that there was a national search done when Ed Flynn came as the first police commissioner. Let me give you some clarity on that. There was the appearance of a national search, and you got to understand the difference between when they're playing games and when they're doing stuff for real. Ed Flynn was at the time the head of the Executive Office of Public Safety for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts under Mitt Romney, who was the governor at the time. Mitt Romney cut a deal with then Mayor Charlie Ryan in Springfield to hire Ed Flynn as police commissioner because Mitt was leaving the governorship. He was not running for re-election because he was preparing to run for president, which meant that more than likely a Democrat could have gotten office as governor, which did happen with Deval Patrick becoming governor. And if a Democrat got in as governor, then those Republican appointees like Ed Flynn would no longer be in their position. So Ed Flynn would have a safe place to land while he looked for something else. He cut that deal with Charlie Ryan to hire Ed Flynn. He came to Springfield. Mitt Romney came to Springfield with his full state police detail. They shut down City Hall and all of that, something most other governors never did, where so that Ed Flynn could be sworn in as police commissioner. So that was a patronage hire. That was nepotism. That was not a national search. So let's not get it twisted that because they pretended they did a national search, that it was actually a national search. That didn't happen. That was definitely a patronage hire. I just wanted to throw that out there for clarity, for those who don't have the history of that. The other thing is we need you all who are on the live stream now to sign that petition. I put that petition in the comment section. I'm going to put it in there again. I need for you all to go to change.org, click that link, and there it is again, and go sign that petition now. Sign it. Share it, put it on your social media pages. Let's get as many signatures as we can get. Let's support this initiative. Let our voices be heard. The only way we can make change is by staying woke and staying active. I want to thank my guests for coming on with me on today. Ladies, I'm going to give you all some final remarks and tell people how they can get involved with Stay Woke and stay active. And then you'll have the final remarks, Counselor Whitfield.
Thank you. We would say that the best way to get in touch with us at this moment would be email. You can reach us at 413-staywoke-stayactive@gmail.com. There is a Facebook group that we invite people who are ready to do this work in. It is not a place for people who are just now discovering their allyship. That is not the space for you. It is not a space for people who are coming in to share images and videos that might be triggering or re-traumatizing in regards to police brutality. That is not the space for that, because we live it and we see it on a regular basis. So there's a Facebook group, or you can email us. And the piece that we wanted to close with is we wanted to lift up all of the other young people in the 413 Springfield area who are taking action against these things. We've had a lot of conversations with people from Westfield to West Springfield to Ludlow on the line, because the reality is when young people step up to speak, there is a question sometimes that we get from folks who are older than us that says, how dare you question my authority, right? And so we are challenging that narrative and saying it's not about questioning your authority, it's about having this conversation together and getting on the same page. But we want to continue to encourage young people to step up and to step into this space with us. And so we just want to kind of shout out every other person who we come into contact with, who we work with, and who are doing their own things on the side to support this work. And I think we wanted to leave it there. We wanted to kind of give back and hold space for other young people doing this work. So thank you for having us.
Yeah, and just to reiterate, I just young people, like we all people of color, like we're all experiencing something. We're all experiencing this like together in a way that other white people can't understand, other people can't understand. And so for young people who feel like you haven't had a voice and feel like you haven't been able to say much, you feel like you're sick of just making a couple Facebook statuses. I mean, I've been there, right? But it's when you have something to say and you have something to share, you just got to get out and do it, and you got to be active. So find groups like ours and find groups like other organizations and stuff in the area that are doing the work. Join them, and there's always a space. There's a space for everyone. Again, we always say, like at a protest, like if you're an educator, there's a space for you. If you're in the health, if you're a healthcare worker, there's a space for you. If you're in food justice, there's a space for you. So find your space, and we can all work together. And people of all ages, but definitely young people. It's time for us to stand up and do what we have to do. For the petition, if you don't see the link in the comments, you can just go to change.org and you can just type in Commissioner Clapper and it comes up. So if you want to send the petition, you search Commissioner Clapper and her name the petition will pop up.
And if you're really not sure about whether or not there's a space for you as a young person to be active in this community, we want to invite you out to an event that some peers of ours are hosting on Tuesday from 2 to 7, the Peaceful Roots arts protest. It's going to be downtown Springfield in Court Square. And the idea is for people to just come out and be in community with one another. It'll be a good time and to support Black business. So they do have a goal of how much money they want to circulate within the Black community at that event. It's going to be Tuesday, so tomorrow, July 7th, from 2 to 7 p.m. in Court Square, Springfield, Massachusetts. Allies, you come out and bring your money too. And so thank you for this space.
Peaceful
All right.
Roots art protest. So
Thank you, ladies. I appreciate y'all.
Absolutely.
You're welcome.
Appreciate you. Listen, those of you who are signing the petition, just put that in the comments. Thank you, Kyrene. Thank you, Victoria. Those who are commenting that you have signed the petition already, you can do that right now. Go on before you forget. Sign it and then share it to make sure that others are signing the petition as well. Councilor Whitfield, always a pleasure having you with us. I want you to have your final remarks.
Sure, Bishop. Thank you for having me, and thank you for the platform that you always bring the truth and the true issues to the forefront. You're very knowledgeable, and I don't take your knowledge for granted because you always teach me something that I did not know. And so thank you for being that person. I want to thank the young people for getting the courage to come forward, to use their voices. You just figured it out. And I want more people to just figure it out. Whatever you're passionate about, just go ahead and do it. Just try it. Even if it doesn't work, at least you tried something. And you always learn something from whatever you do. So go ahead and just try it. If you need any support, that's what our generation is supposed to be here for. That's what Bishop Swan is to me, a mentor. And we're supposed to mentor you along. And sometimes, a lot of times, we learn from you how to be better at our jobs and better at doing what we're supposed to do. So let's just all join together and get this work done and do what's best for the community. I want you guys to watch for what's going to happen with the firing range. There's some injustices going on there, but that's a whole other show, Bishop. That's a whole nother show. I want to thank my colleagues. I want to especially thank President Councilor Hurst, because he has taught me so much. He is always supportive of ideas, and I want to thank the rest of the council: Marcus Williams, Jesse Letterman, Orlando Ramos, Adam Gomez, Victor Davil, those that always come to the forefront and speak up on the issues that are important. But I also want you guys to be mindful of those that you don't see, saying anything at any time on issues that are important. Your vote is your voice, and it's time to make change and get those folks out that are not doing what's best for the residents of the city and for the community. And I just want to leave it there and say use your vote. And always contact me. People inbox me all the time. If I forget something, please remind me. I don't take offense to it. Charge it to my head, not my heart. I have a lot going on. But please get in touch with me via Facebook Messenger. My phone number is 413-221-4443. And you can always email me at twhitfield@springfieldcityhall.com. And I just appreciate being here.
All right. Thank you so much. Appreciate you so much. And I'm sure we'll be talking again real soon.
Absolutely.
All right. 413-337-1867 is the number here. If you want to have a holler at me for the last few minutes of the program. But listen, I want to thank those who are signing. Jennifer Bayman signed, Mother Carolyn Roberson signed, Elise Gibson signed, Stephanie Johnson signed. Who else signed? Michael Hill is signing right now. Kathy Swanson signed and shared. Who else is signing? I need y'all to sign this petition. Cousin Lisa Glass Swan signed. I need y'all signing. I need y'all sharing this petition. It is very, very important. Do it right now. Good morning, caller. You're on the air. Caller, you're on the air. Going once. Going twice. Gone. 413-337-1867 337-1867. I'll definitely take your calls until show close. About 11 minutes left in the program. Let's see if we can get this caller on. Good morning, caller.
Yes, hi. I think I'm having bad service over here in PA.
All right, I got you. You're on the air. We can hear you.
Yes, hi. I'm Karima Watson, and I'm calling from PA.
All right.
Dauphin County needs to be addressed.
Yep.
I have a whole lot. I have facts. It's a prejudice ring going around in Dauphin County, PA, on Black people cases. They're incarcerating innocent Black people just because of the color of their skin. I met Daniel Harris through my fake brother up there. I never met Daniel a day in my life. I just talked to him on the phone, but I have been helping him with his case.
All right.
Hello. Oh, I'm sorry.
We're listening.
I'm hoping that PA can get some support too, because the same thing over here and it's not right. And I'm hoping one day that I can actually meet him in person instead of just talking to him over the phone.
Absolutely.
They have a judge.
What groups are active in your county that you can connect with to move the needle
When
forward?
I tell you, I have tried everything, and the bad part about it is his lawyer did a deal with the Commonwealth. His lawyer said that he shot that boy in self-defense, but Daniel never found that out until after his trial, everything was over. So now, trying to fight the case, people telling us 40,000, 20,000. It's like, so I have tried everything. I have Josh Shapiro office blocked my phone number.
I would encourage you to look for grassroots organizations like the young ladies who just left the program, like the NAACP, potentially your Urban League, potentially other social justice groups. I'm certain that there's got to be someone within the county that is willing to help you move the needle forward on that initiative. Thank you for your call. 413-337-1867. Thank you for those that are continuing to sign this petition, that are signing this initiative. I appreciate you so very much. You're helping to move the needle forward here in the city of Springfield. Thank you, Ricky Johnson, who signed. Who else is signing? I need for y'all to come on now. I see y'all on the stream. I see you, LeVar Click. I see you, Andrew Cade. I see you, Mark Dorsey. I see you, Pamela Lumpkin. I see you, Michelle Hill, Michael Moore. I see y'all on the stream. I need y'all to sign that petition. I see you, Paulette Davis. I see you, Cynthia Souls. I see you. Who else we got on here? That's rolling. That's still rolling with us. Victoria, I see you. You already signed. Elizabeth Goff. I see you. Tracy Lowe Jackson. I see you. I need y'all to sign. I need some more of y'all telling me that you signed the petition. Kathy Swanson wants the link again. I'm going to put the link in again. Here it is right there, Kathy. Click that link right there and sign that petition. There's some other things that are going to be coming out around this push for police accountability. So I want you to stay tuned. I want you to stay close to the vest. I want you to pay attention to what is happening in our city. There's a synergy that exists. There's an energy that is out there. There are people who are fed up with the status quo. And so we're trying to move the needle forward for accountability. And we need you to be on board with us. Okay, don't sit on the sideline and watch. Don't be the barbershop and beauty shop politicians who talk about what people should be doing and who ain't doing. You know, what are you doing? What are you doing to progress our community? What are you doing to better our city? That is the question of the day. We need you to be doing something, and signing a petition is a simple thing, for you to be able to do to help us get accountability with the police in our city. You heard Senator Lesser with the bill that is being introduced by the Senate today. He needs your support on that. There are all kinds of things that are happening on the state level, on the local level. Our city council president Hurst and Councilor Whitfield and Councilor Marcus Williams and Councilor Victor Davila and Councilor Adam Gomez and others, they need your support, even as they step out and do things like call for police accountability, like challenge the budget, like start the process of defunding the police and those things. They need for you to continue to support them. These community organizations, these young people, Stay Woke, Stay Active, Sister Tanisha Arena and Arise for Social Justice, Sister Tara Parrish and Pioneer Valley Project, the NAACP. We all need your support. We need your support. We need you to do more than just be social media activists. We need you to be activists in real life. Okay? We need you to do something for real, something that is tangible, something that moves the needle forward, and something as simple as signing a petition is a very small thing for us to ask for. I know you can do it. I know you can do it. A couple of things I need to announce once again. I need you to stay tuned for listen. On September 17th was going to be our annual Freedom Fund dinner for the Greater Springfield NAACP. But because of the pandemic and the uncertainty of what's happening around that, we are not having our dinner as we traditionally do at Chez Joseph, the big gala and affair, but we are going to have a virtual symposium. Look out for the information that is coming out this week. It is a virtual symposium on the same date, September 17th, Thursday, September 17th, 7 p.m. Put a pin in there, save that date. It's still going to be dynamic. We're still going to be giving out our community service awards, our veteran of the year, our young person of the year, our community service, our lifetime award, the James Hennessy Award. We're going to be giving those out. We'll have a presentation on prostate cancer by AdmiTech. That's going to be happening. And we still have a keynote speaker. Some of you will remember a couple of years ago when I brought my friend, Dr. Freddie Haynes here. Some of you saw him on my first edition of the Bishop's Barbecue. He is going to be the keynote speaker at our virtual symposium on September 17th. So you don't want to miss our Freedom Fund Symposium. Now, here's what we're asking for you to do. You won't be purchasing a ticket for a dinner, but we are asking you to make a donation. And as part of that donation, your membership for the NAACP will be covered. All right. I can't tell you over the air because we're prohibited from doing that. But when you see the information come out, it is a nominal donation that will cover your NAACP membership and will help support the branch. And so I want you to look out for that. That's happening on September 17th. And remember, this Wednesday, brothers and sisters, you don't want to miss this Wednesday. The Bishop's Barbecue is happening this Wednesday. This Wednesday, once again, I've got an all-sister panel, an all-female panel. I've got the indomitable Karen Hunter, Professor Karen Hunter, Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist, syndicated talk show host, the Karen Hunter Show. You've seen her when I brought her to Springfield. I've got Tamika Mallory, that super bad sister, activist, the architect of the Women's March that took place the day after Trump was inaugurated, brought together 3 million women from around the globe. She is now running an organization called Until Freedom. She just got shouted out by Beyonce on her new song Parade, Black Parade. Tamika is going to be with me on Wednesday. Comedian Ada Rodriguez, You've seen her on so many of the comedy shows, but she's also a very active advocate and community activist speaking out against injustice. So she's going to be with me. And Dr. Keisha Blaine, one of the most brilliant minds in our nation, academician, professor, author, humanitarian. I've got 4 bad sisters coming up on the Bishop's Barbecue. There'll be no raisins in the potato salad, just truth served hot off the grill. So you want to be with me on Wednesday at 9 p.m. We'll be streaming live right here on Facebook, on YouTube, on Instagram, on the Twitter and Periscope, all of that stuff. We're going to be live and in color, and you don't want to miss it. Tell a friend, tell somebody. You don't want to miss the Bishop's Barbecue. And then the final thing I need for you to do, I need you to subscribe to my podcast. We started a brand new podcast called The Bishop's Barbecue. Anywhere you stream podcasts, you can find it right now. You can find it on Spotify. You can find it on Apple Podcasts. You can find it on Google. Wherever you stream podcasts, you can find the Bishop's Barbecue. Also, there is a podcast where you can catch my live radio broadcast. It's called Bishop Swan Live. Bishop Swan Live. That's a second podcast. And the third podcast, just look up my name, Bishop Talbert Swan. It's my sermon podcast, the sermons I preach from the Spring of Hope Church and from other churches and venues around the nation. You can check those out there. So do that even as you're signing this petition. Go and subscribe to my podcast. Go on and listen to it. Share it with somebody. All of that kind of stuff. It's always a pleasure being with you, fam. Share this with somebody. Tell them if they didn't catch the show, you need to go back and watch Bishop Swan's show on today. Always a pleasure being with you. Love you, fam. Until the next time I talk to you and you talk to me, always remember, God loves you, and so do I.
Won't you say a name?
Kimani Gray, say his name. Kimani Gray, say his name. Kimani Gray, say his name. Kimani Gray, won't you say his name? John Crawford, say his name. John Crawford, say his name. John Crawford, say his name. John Crawford, won't you say his name? Michael Brown, say his name. Michael Brown, say his name. Michael Brown, say his name. Michael Brown, won't you say his name? Say his name. 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 Won't you say his name?
Miriam Carey, say her name. 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 Sharonda Singleton, say her name. Sharonda Singleton, say her name. Sharonda Singleton, say her name. Say her name. Say her name. Emmett Till, say his name. Emmett Till, say his name. Emmett Till, say his name. Emmett Till, want to say his name. 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 Want to say his name.
Tommy Yancey, say his name. Tommy Yancey, say his name. Tommy Yancey, say his name. Tommy Yancey, say his name. Jordan Baker, say his name. Jordan Baker, say his name. Jordan Baker, say his name. Say his name, won't you say his name? I'm a guy, y'all say